Welcome to Happily Ever After, the podcast where we talk about life's big stories. From breakups and breakdowns to icky secrets and happy endings, it's the stuff that makes us human. I'm your host, Hannah Harvey. I'm a writer and a parenting blogger at mumsdays.com. That's mumsdays.com. I'd be really grateful if you could subscribe and leave a review because it basically means more people can find the podcast. And I also really love hearing from you, so please do contact me through Instagram at mumsdays with any of your stories really and you know how you relate to the episode or even questions that you may want answering. You can find all the details from this episode in the show notes. Hello and welcome to Happily Ever After with me, Hannah. And today I've got a very special guest with Sophie Milliken. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for coming in.
It's exciting.
I know. So Sophie and I, we first met
at a boot camp, a fitness boot camp. Doing star jumps.
Back in the day, that was like, I think Ruben was 2 and he's now 10.
That's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
I still train with Phil.
Do you?
I do, yeah.
Oh, I see his Instagram. Yeah. He's lovely.
He is. No star jumps anymore. I just lift weights instead.
Look at you. Easier. Progressed from the star jump. In many ways.
Yeah. Well.
So, and then we kind of reconnected again because you reached out when I was first going through divorce. So yeah, we were reconnecting over that and the joy that it is because you too have been divorced, have you not?
Yes. So I was thinking about this morning and it's probably about 9 years since I got my decree absolute. And yeah, it's been ages, but it feels like less time, I guess, because we have a daughter. So there's been, there's some level of contact, although it's quite little at the moment. Yeah, so it's been quite a while, but I think, I was thinking about it this morning because I was thinking about the fact that I was like the first person that I knew in my group of my age that got divorced and how crappy that was. And then now kind of looking around and I see, people going through it over the years and kind of joining the gang. And I guess that's probably why I do get in touch with people when I can see that that's happening and just be kind of like, hey, how are you doing? Are you all right? Etc.
Yeah, do you know, now you've said that, I'm like, you were the first person.
Oh, really?
That got in touch with me, and I was the same.
We're like, that's a bit weird.
No, not at all. I was like, I literally don't know anybody going through this, and at the time I felt so lonely. Not because I didn't have people around me supporting me, but just because I felt like the only person that's ever gone through this. Mm-hmm. And then you reached out and you were like, I've had the same experience, and I know what it's like. So it just felt really lovely to reconnect on that level. Like, shit that you've had to go through that too.
I did not know that I was the first person to do that. So I'm glad that I did. And I think I guess anyone that's going through it, it's nice to actually reach out to other people because, like you and I, we didn't know anyone that was going through it, and it does feel lonely, and it's almost like people don't really want to talk to you in case you give them the divorce lurgy and they don't want to be touched by that. And I think, for most people that are in a marriage or a serious relationship, when they break up, it's that whole weirdness of they did things together as a couple with other couples, and I didn't get invited to stuff in the same way anymore, and it was a bit crap, to be fair. Yeah,
definitely. And I think it certainly sorts out who your friends are.
It does. Yeah. I lost a couple of friends during that time.
Yeah.
Do you know what? There was a friend who I lost around that time. And I look back actually and I wonder whether she was going through her own stuff work-wise. She was always really into work and took on a lot of stress at work. And I wonder whether she was kind of depressed to do with something that was completely nothing to do with me whatsoever and just couldn't deal with my situation.
Yes.
And we were really great friends and we just she just basically stopped talking to me. She ghosted me, and that was really rubbish. So I lost her during that time. But I look back and I don't feel, particularly bad about her because I just think she was going through her own stuff at the time. But there's definitely that thing around people not wanting to be linked to it in any way, or don't know what to say maybe, and that kind of thing, which is a bit sad, really.
I do think as well, like, I can understand it because there was quite a lot of drama involved in mine. And I think if you've got stuff going on, you might not have space for me then to be like, this has happened and that's happened. But, that's fine, whatever. But I think the hard thing for people in divorce then is then to then say, like, for me it's different because I was blogging and I was trying to reestablish a career, so it was like, I'm going to tell you what's happening. But for many people, they'll just be really quiet about it and they won't say anything, which is why I really like doing this, because I'm collecting my divorcees as I go along, and people are getting in touch and being like, there's things happening. And I'm like, I know, but it does get better.
Yeah.
And that's what you were able to say to me.
Definitely. It so does. Once you've kind of got all the legal stuff out of the way, you do get through it. Like, I remember, the point that our relationship broke down. I mean, it hadn't been good for a while, but my daughter Jess, she'd just turned 2. And he's a very heavy drinker and other stuff is not good for you. And we just weren't aligned with our lifestyles whatsoever. And the drinking got worse, and it got to a point where enough was enough. And I asked him to leave, and she'd literally just turned 2, maybe a few weeks before. And I'd only been running my business for 6 months at that point. So I'd had this really steady corporate career with John Lewis for years, on really great money as well. Had set this business up for literally 6 months in. And then we split up, and we were divorced really quick, like within maybe 4 months or something. It was super fast. It was super fast.
Mine took nearly 3 years.
Yeah, well, we had less to argue over because he had nothing. So he just tried to take what I had, and I was just like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. So it was quite quick. But I remember being in the spare room in that house 6 months into a new business and thinking, this is really shit. I've got no money, having gone from having a great job, new business, you don't have loads of money coming in straight away, so no money, a 2-year-old that's just challenging in general, 2-year-olds are, right, and feeling completely isolated in every possible way, and then having financial challenges around the fact that my mortgage, I think we'd been paying £650 a month between us for this mortgage at that point in time. I couldn't get a mortgage on my own because I was self-employed. So my dad had to pretend to the bank that he was going to work till he was 75 to come onto my mortgage. But because he was old, the term went from, say it was on 23 years or something, down to 11. So then the payment went from 650 up to about 1,200 quid. And I was earning nothing at this point. So I just remember a real clear vision, even now, of sitting in my spare room. Jess was at nursery and I was working away on the laptop thinking, this is properly crap. Like, this is proper rock bottom crap levels. But I knew that it would get better. And I just kept my eye on the prize kind of thing, and just thought, you know what, 2 years from now, everything's going to be different. And I just kept telling myself, this is crap, this is crap, this is crap. And I thought, I'm just going to chuck myself into work, because I knew that by working hard on the business, it would distract me, because I'm at my best at work. It is a great distraction from everything. And I knew that by putting those hours into the business, it would improve my financial situation, which solved lots of other problems. And that's what happened.
That takes a lot of self-worth, courage, all that kind of stuff. That can take for me, yeah. I'm like, my confidence was really rock bottom at that time. But I suppose that's where different things come in. Like, I probably threw myself into other things because I had a bit of financial space.
Yeah.
Whereas you're like,
I was the opposite.
You've got no choice whatsoever. You've just got to go for it. But, you could have gone, right, fuck this, I'm going back to John Lewis.
I did think about it for a while. And then the other thing that was frustrating, I guess, was, that anyone, whether they're divorced or not, will find is just around childcare, like decent childcare across the hours that you want at a price that you can afford. And I thought, if I go back and get another job, well, if I'd wanted to go back to John Lewis, I'd have had to move back down south, really, to be on anywhere like that kind of money. Didn't want to do that because I wouldn't have had the support network that I needed. So for me to get a job back in Newcastle and the kind of money that I wanted, I knew I wouldn't get that, and I knew that I wouldn't get the flexibility that I would want. So I thought, well, at least when I work for myself, I've got a level of control over my calendar, and I can, work in the evenings when she's gone to bed to maybe finish a bit earlier, or still have a day off with it, those sorts of things. So for me, that flexibility and the absolute certainty that I would improve the financial situation at some point, that was better for me.
Mm-hmm. So during that period, like, I've got a question here about how did you keep your spirits and your energy high? Like,
I don't think I did, I actually don't think I did. I think I remember crying a lot, and feeling really miserable and feeling really trapped. Like, I'm trapped with this too. I can't go out because my ex-husband never did overnights until Jess was about, maybe 8 or 9, maybe even older than that, quite old. So there were no overnights. We're now back in that situation where he hasn't seen her for a few months anyway, so we've got a whole other drama in that sense. She's 11 now. So I didn't have that freedom. My parents helped me a bit, but they tended to help me, and still do, for work reasons rather than for fun. So I felt like there was just no sort of release. So it was hard, but I think I've always gained energy from work, which might make me sound a bit sad, but I would argue, actually, if you love what you do, that's actually a positive thing. I've always loved work, I've always loved business. So for me, going and winning that work and improving our financial situation was just such a motivator for me. And I've been lucky that whatever business I've run, I've had fantastic clients who are just genuinely really nice people, and I've had brilliant teams that I've worked with, and they lift you up, and they know when you're having a bit of a crappy day, and they'll slide the bar of dairy milk across the table when they know that you need a bit of a lift, or they'll just do something nice. I mean, I've got 2 people in my current team who came across from the last business, super, super loyal. And both of them have come round and babysat for me, sometimes for days at a time, so that I can go on a business trip. Or, when I left my last business and set up the new one, I was emotionally drained because it was quite a brutal exit. And I went to Tenerife on my own for 4 days, and Rachel in my team moved in and looked after Jess and took her to school every day so that I could go on that trip. I mean, they're like,
that's giving me goosebumps.
Employee goals, team goals, just total legends. So I think there's something around who you surround yourself with, and someone in business world talked to me on a podcast actually a while ago about people being either radiators or drains. So you want to hang out with those radiators that are going to give you the lift and the boost when you need it, and anyone that's draining your energy, you just haven't got time for that, because particularly at that stage in life when you're feeling pretty bruised anyway, the last thing you want is for someone to drag you down even further. So you need to take your energy where you can get it, really.
And I think really leaning on being able to ask for help is quite important during that period. So I think there was a bit where I had the kids pretty much, I did, for 6 weeks, and I didn't know how long that time was going to last, so I was literally like on the phone to every parent at Ruben's school. Can he come for a play date? Can he stay overnight? Can he do this? And I needed it. I needed to know that I was going to have at least one night a week when I was on my own.
It's so important. I'm feeling that at the moment, to be honest, because Jess hasn't seen her dad for maybe, I want to say about 3 months now, which is it is a long time. And even though I'm away a bit for work, but because it's so full on, it's not a break, is it? It's not a break in that sense. And I get to the point where I'm like, God, we've spent too much time together just on our own, and actually I'm going to go mad. And she's 11 and she's hormonal, and so we can't spend that much time together. So I'm trying to like bank a few play dates and sleep, they're at sleepover age, which is excellent, so that kind of helps. But you need it for your own sanity. I'm a better parent when I've had a break and I'm back, and I'm, for sure, just feeling a bit happier and jollier, because otherwise I'm quite raj. That's not cool.
No, I had that experience fairly recently because their dad had been on holiday for a couple of weeks, about 3 weeks, and towards the end I was like, oh, this is a lot. And I had a bit of a breakdown on the beach involving a bee stinging me.
Well, that's quite harsh.
The sting wasn't that hard, but I was just like, that painful, but I was like, that just tipped me over an edge. And then the very next day they were, you know, back at school and back at nursery, and I had a bit of time to myself, and I recorded a podcast with Katie, and just the process of doing that brought me back to myself. So I guess it's working out where you're going to get your energy from,
Yes.
who your friends are that you can lean on when you need them. Yeah, like I turned up at my mum's and had a big cry, and she was like really good and took them out, and
that's what you need.
Yeah.
That's what you need. And it does get easier as they get older because they are more sort of self-sufficient.
Exactly.
You know, your daughter's still quite young. You've still got a bit of a way to go in that sense. But, you know, Jess goes to big school in September, and I can just see that big change is coming and that she's just not going to want to hang out with me soon. So actually I need to make the most of it in some ways as well.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so 9 years. How do you feel about dating?
Depends when you ask me, I guess. You know, I might give you a different answer next week, but
are you bothered? Like, is it something?
I go through phases where, you know, I have had relationships, mostly crap ones, since I got divorced, and I have dated, but I do go through phases where I just cannot be arsed, where I just think, can't be bothered, I've met a load of morons and I'm busy with launching something with the business and I just think I haven't got the headspace for it. So kind of go through phases. And I am genuinely actually worried. I was telling someone this earlier. I'm genuinely worried about whether I actually have the capacity to live with someone again now, because I've had one relationship where we kind of tried living together, but it was just awful. So he was always kind of in and out anyway. So it's like a 4-year on-off relationship that ended maybe 3-4 years ago now anyway, so it's kind of like in the middle, and that wasn't great at all. That was really toxic, and I think now I've become so set in my ways, like I love eating my weird stuff that I like to eat that I would never cook for someone if they came round. I like watching what I want to watch on TV. I actually don't watch much TV either, so I'd rather go to bed early with a book. And for me, you know, like going to bed at like 8:30 or 9, it's heaven. It's absolute heaven, but it's not really compatible with a boyfriend. So I struggle a bit with stuff like that. And I just think, God, could I ever live with anyone again? And I've got loads of space in my house. And I was like thinking, oh, if someone moved in and I had all this stuff there, like, do I want that? So it does worry me a bit, because I think I would like to be with someone, but then also I don't want to be with the wrong person. And then I worry about my judgment because I've made such terrible mistakes in the past, and then I just kind of talk myself out of bothering, really.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you feel like you sometimes repeat old patterns? And
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think I do seem to go after guys that are just not right for me, but in different ways, but just not right. And I think when you come out of something and you've got, you know, the benefit of hindsight, experience, age, all those things, you can look back and go, oh my God, there were so many bloody red flags right at the start, actually. But when you're in it and you want it to work, you just avoid them. Whereas now I think I've been out of it all for so long that I'm probably just seeing red flags everywhere and not maybe giving people a chance, maybe.
Yeah, it's tricky, that one. And I think as well, because I think we're attracted to a similar kind of guy, you know, someone who's dangerous, quite ambitious and like, I don't know, like probably a bit wild.
Yeah.
And so then when the nice guy comes along, you're like, oh,
I think
am I going to get bored with you? And you just immediately assume it's not going to work.
There's definitely something in that, but I'm like, and maybe this is why I'm, you know, I struggle with it all, because I am attracted to that for sure, but then I am not like that. Maybe I have been a bit when I was younger. I was never dead wild, but you know, I'd be out a lot and I'd be partying and stuff. But I would never describe myself as wild. Yet the guys that I used to go for were wild, and I just think like, that kind of guy's not compatible with my going to bed at 8:30.
Yeah, we've changed, man.
But I love it.
I do, and it's I think it's very important when you are a solo parent, not just a solo parent, but when you have young children or children at all. You can only be your best self if you've slept enough, not drunk enough.
100%. And you know, obviously, I know you don't drink now, and I don't think I drink a lot, but when I do, I really struggle the next day, and I don't even have to drink that much. I can have like, because I'm obsessed with tracking my sleep, like love it. It's just like guilty pleasure, like, ooh, how many hours did I get? What quality sleep was that last night? And I just get obsessed with it, and it stops me from drinking because I know that if I had one glass of wine tonight with my dinner, it will impact my restoration score on my sleep.
No way.
So then I think, well, it's not worth it. And then if I was to have like a big night out where I drink quite a lot, I'm so hanging the next day, and then I'm just really angry with myself because I'll lose a whole day on the weekend, and I just think, what a waste. Sometimes it's nice and it's worth
fun.
it.
And you still move in the businessy circles where there's like
Loads of
awards ceremonies and booze flying around.
Yeah, I was at such a good one last week. I was at the launch of a new Ferrari, and they had Ferrari champagne, which was really nice actually. Yeah, this Ferrari champagne, and they had Rio Steakhouse where they're doing all the food, and they'd set up a bar so you could go and get cocktails and drink like strawberry daiquiris, and I thought, this is nice. So yeah, there's a lot of that.
Sometimes
but
it's worth it.
It is sometimes worth it, but I think as well you do kind of get a bit bored of stuff like that, because I get invited to lots of things like that, and it is exciting and it's a novelty, and Jess loves it when I come home with a good goodie bag. She's done well with those over the last month. But I was looking at my diary for this week, and this is the first week that I haven't had events on of like most nights. I was literally at something constantly for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm just like thinking now, early nights all week, lush.
It's nice that you've got that balance though, so that you still are managing the early nights some weeks, and other times you can be like just out, and because it's that I was talking to another guest about that whole balance between motherhood and still nurturing your dreams and your ambition. Like, where does your drive come from, do you think?
I don't know. I've been asked this before as well. I ended up doing a blooming TEDx talk on it because someone asked me
I don't know, but you can watch my TEDx.
You can watch my TEDx. Just pop my name into YouTube. Yeah, well, I say that, but that was a genuine conversation. So I'd done this book launch, a few years back now. I'd done this book launch, and after the book launch, 2 people that organised TEDx talks came up to me and said, do you want to speak at a TEDx talk? And I didn't even really know what a TEDx talk. I'd never watched one before. So I just said yes to the first one and thought, it's ages away, I'll just figure it out. Then realised it was quite a big deal and a bit scary because you have to do it live and you get one shot and that's it. And there was all these, you have to have like 3 meetings before they let you do it. And it was a bit intense. And I went along to the first meeting. It was in Birmingham. And I went along to the first meeting, and the organiser was like, right, so what's your idea? Because I hadn't had to pitch for it. I just got given it. I didn't have to apply or anything like you normally do. And I was telling her this idea, and it was linked to my business, and it was quite boring. Can't even remember what it was, but it was quite boring, but it was safe. And at that point, I never used to talk about anything personal because I didn't want people to know that I was a single parent, actually, because I didn't want them to have any sort of preconceptions of, what I was about or think that I couldn't do the job, whatever. So I never used to talk about anything personal. And she kind of threw her pen down in the middle of this meeting and was like, that's really boring. She said, I want to know where your grit comes from. Like, where's that come from? And I remember, really directly asking me this question. And I just started chatting away. And she was like, right, that's your story. Will you tell it? And I was like, oh my God, I feel really sick. But I did it. And that was, that was what the TEDx was. And that led to 2 other things, cool things happening as well. But I think, like, none of my family are entrepreneurial at all. They've all got dead normal jobs. They're all dead normal in general. And I think I've always been quite entrepreneurial, and I think that I get a sense, like a bit of a thrill when I do business deals and cool things happen. And I like the fact that in business you can just rock up to something and something else exciting will happen off the back of it, like my book launch, getting to do a TEDx talk. It's a snowball effect. And I think as well, when I was going through the divorce, that period of time where I had no money, like minus money, if anything, and started racking up all this debt with my parents. I was lucky that my parents could help me out, but I did have to pay them all of that money back. So I was getting in more and more in debt every month. And I think I owed them about 30 grand in the end because they were having to help sub me on this mortgage. And I'd had, a really cracking salary before I'd set the business up. So it was a right, step down at a crap time in my life. And I think I had and still have this insecurity around money and thinking, oh my God, what if it runs out? And what am I going to do if I don't have it? And for me, it's not about having a nice handbag or a fancy holiday or whatever. Don't get me wrong, I do like those things also. However, it's not all about that. And, you know, I've lived quite happily without holidays for years, and I've gone through those tough times. For me, having money equates to freedom and choice. So I can now choose to send Jess to a school that I would like Jess to go to. So to me, that's brilliant that I've got the opportunity to make that choice and to give her an opportunity that I didn't have when I was growing up. And I think she will excel in that environment. It's nice to have been able to take her to amazing, she's very well travelled. We've been on some mint holidays that have created experiences for us. And it's not always been the really fancy, expensive ones that she's raved about. In fact, I often say to people when I talk to her about, oh, where do you want to go this year? What should we do? Where's been your favourite holiday? She often says to me, Mum, it was when we went to Birmingham, because she came with me on that TEDx talk and got to hang out with the film crew that were filming it and do all these really cool things. And she loves all of that. So, it's with young kids, it's often the simple things, isn't it? It's not the fancy holidays. But for me, it's definitely that whole freedom and security side of things. I think that has always pushed me on. And just the fact that I get a buzz off doing deals.
Yeah.
Makes me sound like a drug dealer.
A buzz off the deal. I can relate to that. Like, when I was growing up, I was like the girl in Edgbaston, Birmingham. So I understand why you love it so much. But I used to help the milkman. And then everybody in the area would be like, oh, because you go and collect the money. So you're chatting with all these like really rich people. And they'd be like, oh, do you know somebody who can walk dogs? And I'd be like, me. Do you know somebody who can clean? Me. Can't clean. Don't even clean my own house. But do you know what I mean? Like, just that you do one thing and then something new will come from it.
I love that. It's about
why I do the podcast.
Yeah, taking opportunities, seeing where conversations lead, just being really open-minded. And I think cool things happen.
Opportunities. Yeah. Yeah, I love all that. I just need to turn it into money at some point. You're going to have to coach me.
Yeah, it needs to make money.
That's the thing. Like, you can't do everything for free forever, which is where I've ended up going down that sort of route.
Be careful with that.
Yeah, and I guess it might be a slightly, I don't know, just feeling like I should be giving back because I'm in such a fortunate position. But then, it's not going to last forever.
No, and I think as well, when you do too much stuff for free, it kind of devalues your time and your people's perception of your value as well. So things like I had a really good chat with a business colleague ages ago where she was saying to me, I'm not speaking at events anymore ever again for free because men always get paid for stuff and women are terrible and just are grateful for the opportunity, but actually the amount of time that it takes to prepare for a talk, to get there, to do a talk, blah blah blah, and there's this expectation often that you'll speak for free. And I was like, yeah, you're right, I'm not going to do that either. And I very rarely would go and speak at an event for free now because I don't need to, and I will if it's something linked to the charity that I chair, or it's linked to my old school or whatever. I would do that. But I think you get treated better as well because there's something just about that value exchange.
Well, Sarah, who you work with.
Sarah Bittendrig. Yes.
I heard you say her surname again. So she's coaching me at the moment, and she says like, people pay attention to what they pay for.
Yeah. Well, you put a value on it. So, I'm sure you've signed up to a freebie course or something and then you never do it. Whereas if you paid, I don't know, a couple of grand for it, you'd think, bloody hell, I need to do that and get the value back. So I think as women as well, in particular, and Sarah would definitely tell you this, there's that whole thing around imposter syndrome. Oh, I couldn't possibly charge that for this or whatever. But actually, why not? If you're providing a service to someone, there is value in that, and we should own that, and we should be making sure that we are getting our worth in things like that, and we shouldn't constantly bow down and do everything for free.
Too bloody right.
Yeah.
Oh. So you've won loads of awards recently, or been nominated for loads.
Yeah.
So you sold your first business.
I did, yeah.
So the one that you started when Jess was 2.
Yep, sold that.
how long did it take until you sold it?
So I started that business in 2013, and I had a co-founder at that point, but he exited after maybe 3 years, I think, and then I sold it in 2019. Stayed on for my earn-out, so you do usually a year or whatever. So I had a year for my earn-out. Stayed on for that. Was going to stay on for a bigger exit and get loads of money, but absolutely hated it. And, you know, much as I've been talking about money and wanting the security, etc., it's not the be all and end all. You've got to, well, everyone will have other things that they value more than money. And for me, it was integrity and, you know, all sorts of other things. And I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. And I felt that I'd sold it to people that kind of didn't share my values. Mm-hmm. So I was getting more and more frustrated. I was challenging things a lot with investors that supported that business, and I just thought, it's bollocks this, and just decided to leave. So the exit process, I would probably say, was as bad as a divorce, actually, because I was like leaving my baby, my other child, and it was really brutal. And I felt that their treatment of me, and it was only literally like two people in that business. Everyone else I actually still speak to and like and respect. It was just a couple of, unfortunately, very influential, powerful people. And I felt that they didn't treat me very well during that exit. So what could have been an amazing exit, where I'm now raving about how lovely they all are and still supporting the business, it was quite horrible. And when I left, I was just so battered, like absolutely drained. And then I couldn't operate in that market for 9 months because you get all these exit restrictions.
Yeah.
So loads of things I couldn't do for 9 months. So that was at the point where I was thinking, well, what the heck can I do next? And that was where the idea for Moja came from, because I was thinking about what had made that first business successful was when I started doing loads of profile building things, and it wasn't intentional. I didn't plan to go and do the TEDx talk or write the books or whatever, but it was that whole one thing, leads to another and that kind of thing. So we set Moja up. Literally, I registered it the night that my contract ended at the business. Literally, and I left that afternoon after months and months of discussions, and then registered at a company's house that night.
Wow.
And then we had the launch party a couple of months later, and we've been trading for 18 months now.
So what you did with Moja was not...
It's not competing at all. No, It's completely different. And I did have a period of time where I thought, do I go back and compete and win all that, get all those clients back? Because the clients were really loyal to me and they liked me and we got on, and I'm friends with them. Like, they're my friends. They're nice people. So a lot of them left when I left, which I said to the business, this is a risk, because if you're not treating me well, they're going to hear about this. Like, people talk, it's a small industry, and they're not going to like that you've not treated me fairly. So, you just might want to think about that from a commercial point of view, but they weren't really interested. So they're quite arrogant. They just thought they'd retain all these clients. But it's been really funny seeing them leave and move on to a competitor who I'm friends with as well. Yeah. And she just texted me the other week to tell me about another one that's gone. And I just think it's funny. It's just slightly
karma, isn't it?
It is business karma. So we're now 18 months in. We've got a lot of clients throughout the UK. We've even got someone in Europe as one of our clients in Europe. Yay. But we've got all sorts of really interesting people. We won our first award for Moja in May at the National Startup Awards. So we won the best PR startup, which was super cool. So we've got our first award in the cabinet, and then I've just found out that I've been shortlisted for the Best Businesswoman Awards in the Best New Business and Best PR category. So sweet. Nice award ceremony to go to in September. So yeah, it's cool.
Real. And what's really awesome about what you do is it's quite accessible for everybody.
Yeah.
So if there's somebody listening to this who's like starting something up and they're looking to build their profile, they would come and work with you.
Well, I would hope so. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Like, yeah, anyone could come and work with us. And really, they're going to have to be scaling it and have enough cash to justify working with us. But the idea is that by working with us to raise their profile, we kind of do all the stuff that Google will say about you. So someone Googles one of our clients, all the stuff that pops up should be stuff that we've helped to get there. So it's all sorts of activities. It's helping them write their award entries. It's helping them write their first book. podcast type things, articles, speaking opportunities, all of those things. And that's underpinned by the press. So the press and PR side of things underpins all of it. So it's just a different take on things. But, you know, if people are earlier on in their journeys, or they're a one-man band and they're literally doing everything themselves and they're bootstrapping, we've got a free series of videos that will show you how to do it over on our YouTube channel. So there's tons of content that we've produced that can teach you how to do it yourself that's free. So
yeah, like building up your profile
everyone.
and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But if you are working on your own.
Yeah.
But it's about you.
It is, and that's, you know, it goes back to the imposter syndrome thing again, particularly for women, is some people feel a bit awkward about that. You know, how do I put myself out there? And, ooh, it's a bit painful and it's a bit cringe, which is why us doing it for them actually is quite easy, because then they don't have to do it themselves in that sense. But the reality is that the benefits that come from putting the spotlight on you, it spotlights your business so effectively, because people are more interesting usually than their businesses, and it's just proven to be a really successful way of growing your business. So sometimes you've just got to jump on board and just do it. Really.
What if you don't know what your business is?
Well, that's unusual. Most people who have a business know what it is.
I'm just asking for a friend.
Well, your friend should work with someone like Sarah Pittendrake, who will maybe be able to work that out.
Yeah. Very good. So I was going to ask you to leave us with your kind of tips of what a woman could do if they're leaving a relationship but also wanting to nurture like their business dreams. Like if you've got any tips, because obviously you had to throw yourself into it.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my tip, because I think if you are coming out of a relationship, you're battered anyway and you're dealing with all of that. If you neglect the business, you're going to lose that as well. You know, unless it's a hobby and you don't really need the money, or you don't really want to put the time in. And there's a lot of people that I meet at business events where they're like, well, I want a work-life balance. And that doesn't exist when you're running your own business. I'm sorry, it might be an unpopular thing to say, but the reality is, to get to that point where you can totally choose what you do with your time, takes a lot of bloody hard work before you get to that point. It's you don't have a really successful business working a 4-hour week. You know, it's just a total myth. I think you can get to that point, to be fair. I think you can get to that point, but not without doing the 60 or the 80-hour weeks in those early years. So I think, you know, you've got to just throw yourself into it. And I think, you know, maybe it's holding a mirror up if you're in that situation to say, do I really want to do that? I'm going through the divorce. Is business for me as well? And if it is, great, because like for me, it was my sanctuary. It distracted me when I was working. I wasn't thinking about the solicitor's letter that I had to respond to, or the court date coming up, or any of those sorts of things that happen during divorce. I was just in the zone of doing the business stuff. But for some people, that actually might be a pressure too far. So maybe they should go and get a job, whether it's temporary or whether that's where they end up going. The other thing is, most people, well, not most people, I don't know, a lot of people would have a business partner or people that work in the business. So it's making use of those relationships. Or even if it's someone that is a one-man band or a freelancer or whatever, there will be some business networks that they go to. You know, one of the things that really helped me in those early years actually was I was going to a women in business networking event. It's one that doesn't exist anymore. In fact, when it ended, we actually created City Ladies, because we missed having that sort of setup. And when I used to go to that, there were always the same. There was like a hardcore group of women that used to always come to it, and then you'd get new faces each month. And I think the 7 of us ended up creating a group chat where we would talk about business stuff in there, but then it quite quickly turned into like non-business stuff. And I think half of that group were divorced with kids, or with daughters, weirdly, or we've all got daughters, and the other half were kind of in relationships or whatever. So we'd be chucking in all the romantic questions, and we'd go out for wine and we'd go out for dinner and stuff. And that group was really good for just kind of keeping me on track and keeping me focused, and they understood the business challenges as well as the family and the divorce and all that sort of stuff. And actually, they were probably the first divorced people that I met, a couple of women that were in that group, because none of my friends were divorced. And even now, my friends outside of business, I don't know if any of them have got not really close friends. There's a lot of them that I think probably would benefit getting divorced. A couple in particular, when I see them, I'm like, come on, is it not time
for you? Come
is it
join
not
me.
time? I do say that. And there's one friend, I have to be careful, Kate. I don't think she would listen to that. Maybe she will. But she really should divorce her husband, and he hates her coming around to my house because she's always really fiery when she comes back and like really challenging. So he doesn't like her to come round.
No.
But I'm like, you need to leave.
It's funny that. Don't go see that woman who tells you to leave me.
I know, how rude.
That's really helpful. I love the idea that it's that idea of, it's like in business, we call it like a mastermind, but of other people, especially women who are going through similar things at the same time that also get the whole business thing. So you're all supporting each other in lots of different ways.
It's important. You can't underestimate it. It's finding your tribe and being there for them. And actually, that same group, they're so interesting because we've all got very different businesses, and there's a couple in that group that have now gone back into employment, so the business side wasn't for them, but we've still got business in common. And when I had that breakup with that on-off 4-year guy, that was just awful. I was really heartbroken, and they rallied around. They're like, right, we're going to meet at Tama's house and you need to be there at 6:00 or whatever. And one of them came and got me and took me there. And they'd ordered like takeaway. They had loads of snacks, wine, sweets, and they'd bought me all these lovely presents. So, and I had like a bag, I think they called it the bag of happy, and it had loads of lovely things in it. And they were like, you need to just dig into this bag whenever you're feeling sad and take something out of it. And it had like chocolate and it had this really nice, this like coin that sort of said, my super mum. It was a bit cheesy, but it was really nice, and it was a nice sentiment behind it. And it's in my purse now even, and just loads of lovely, really thoughtful, nice things. And you just need people that get it.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Get it, can support the dream, can commiserate when it goes wrong.
But celebrate when things are good as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Important to do that because we forget that sometimes.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, the people that you can go to and be like, this cool thing's happened, and they're not like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for coming in, Sophie. That's been really fascinating. It's funny how we can be talking for so many years and then I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that.
It's always the way.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you. All right then, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you again next time for another episode of Happily Ever After with me, Hannah. It would be amazing if you could leave a review and subscribe. And of course, if you've got a friend who might enjoy this episode, please do pass it on. For anything else, you can get in touch with me through Instagram at mumsdays or by my website, mumsdays.com. And did you know that I've got a newsletter? So it's the best way to stay in touch and to make sure you don't miss any podcasts or any freebies or competitions that we're running. And again, you can sign up to that through the website.